Hi, so I feel that Waves have really been upping their game recently with a lot of smart and non-standard plugins that they recently released. Remember, for example, Waves Curves Equator or IDX Dynamics, or the more recent Sync VX for vocal alignment. They've now added to that arsenal of smart plugins with a plugin called Curves AQ, which promises to take a lot of the manual EQing out of your hands if you want to, but still gives you a lot of control. So let's have a look at that. Let's go. Now Waves Curves AQ is Smart Equalizer, which I feel is a bit comparable to maybe Sonable Smart EQ or even Gullfoss. But of course it has its own opinion about how to use equalization in a smart way. And one of those differences is, for example, that it listens to your audio and then it comes up with 5 target curves, which it feels will make your audio sound better and fit better into a mix. Now, which of those 5 you then choose is of course dependent on taste, the rest of the mix, etc. But you basically get a choice at the very start of the process and then can tweak further if you really want to. But so far in what I've tried, I feel that 80%, 90% of the time it will get you there already. Now, in order to be able to show you Waves Curves AQ, on release day, Waves gave me an early access version of their EQ, but this video is not sponsored by Waves in any way. Nevertheless, before you buy a plugin, it's always a good idea to first try it out yourself and not go by any internet review. But let's immediately have a look at the plugin. Now I'm first going to try this on a vocal from a track that I'm working on for my band The Wash. It's called On My Way. It will not be released for a while, but you already get a bit of a preview of the track now. And currently the only thing on this vocal is a compressor to even it out a little bit and a bit of plate reverb. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like without Waves Curves EQ.
I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Decently recorded, not sounding bad at all. So let's put the new Waves plugin on there. And I intend to gradually go into the various controls as we learn this plugin. But obviously there's a big learn button here. So let's just push that and learn the audio.
I'll be on my way. 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 You are my. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Now, as you can see over here, it found that it was listening to a male vocal and it has 5 different suggested target curves for that vocal. So let's listen to them one by one.
I'll be on my way. 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 You are my. I'll be on my way.
Okay, I think I like this one best for this style of vocal and this style of the song. And I will gradually add a couple more instruments so you get a bit more from the song. Let's listen again and bypass it to see what the difference is.
I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Yeah, I feel this really improves the vocal. It makes it less muddy, reduces some of the edgy things which were in there, and gives it a nice broad frequency spectrum. So what we can now do is we can remove the AI spectral targeting system controls by clicking over here. And you can see that it now has a spectral target curve, which is basically the EQ curve that it tries to apply to the input signal, more or less dynamic, which you can control depending on the input signal at the time, of course. Now you can also show the input curve that it measured over here. You can see this is the input curve that it measured. And this is the target curve, so small differences. And the processing that gets applied is visible in these red and blue waveforms that you're seeing over here, where red is a boost of your original signal and blue represents a cut. So if I just play a part which has constant audio, if I repeat, we can have a look at what the display is doing based on the input signal to get it to the target curve at every moment in time, basically. Now, if you want to globally say, I want to do less processing, you can pull it down over here. As you can see, there's almost no processing anymore, or you can increase the amount of processing to 100 which gives a lot more processing, but the default over here is 50, which it suggests. Now there's also separate controls here for the boost and the cut. So if you say, well, I do not want to boost at all, but only cut, you can turn down the boost and you see that there's only blue cuts. And the other way around is also possible. If you only want to do boosts but no cuts, you can see that there's only boost now. Now, apart from these global controls, there's also 4 frequency bands over here that it has learned from your input signal. And in those frequency bands, you can individually say whether you want more boost in that band or less cut in that band. Also for this band. And in addition to that, it has also learned 4 what they call anchors, which are over here. And as I understand it, these are more traditional equalizers, where you can cut or boost what it considers the low part of this particular signal, the fundamental part of the signal, the harmonic part of the signal, or the air part of the signal. Let's listen to that again with some sound.
I'll be on my way. 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 I'll be on my way.
You can also move them if you want to, like this. But obviously it has learned them from your signal, so they should be sort of in the right location. Now another thing that you can do is you can determine whether the processing is dynamic or static. If you put it all the way to static, you see that, well, the processing doesn't change anymore depending on your input signal, because it just corrects the input curve to be more in line with the target curve. If you put it all the way to dynamic, you see that it constantly corrects to the signal in a dynamic way, but you can also vary between that. And I think around here was what it was set to. So this is a combination of dynamic and static EQ, which you're getting now. You can set the input level of the signal, you can set the output level of the signal. And on this side, you can see that there's also a tilt EQ incorporated. And the tilt point is by default at 1K, which you can change if you want to. But as you can see, it basically tilts the target curve up or down around the tilt point. So you can use that, for example, to make the whole signal more airy or more warm as you want to. There are also a couple of different tilt options. This is the regular tilt. There's also a high tilt where you basically pretty much focus on the high part of the signal. A low tilt where you mostly tilt the low part of the signal. And finally, there's a flat tilt. Now at the bottom, you have more control of the dynamic part of the processing. With the precision, for example, you can determine how wide and how deep the frequency bands are that are processed. And you can set the release and the attack time of the dynamics with these controls over here. There's auto makeup enabled by default, so that you're not tricked into thinking that something sounds better because it's just louder. There's a limiter to guard against peaks. And there's a mix control if you want to use this in parallel. And at the very end over here, there's even a phase flip, if that's somehow useful to you. Now you can also enable these guides here on the left side to see how much you're boosting and cutting. And there are low and high pass filters as well, if you want to use those. Now there's a separate Mixsense section here, which I'll get into later. Now before we try this on another source, an acoustic guitar, if you like this video or find it useful at all, please give it a big thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon so you know when I post another video. And if you're really enjoying what I'm doing over here, then you can also consider using the super thanks button below the video. Or if you're planning to buy anything at one of these stores, I have a lot of affiliate links in the description as well. And if you click one of those links and then buy something at that store, it doesn't have to be the item that I'm linking to. But in that case, I will get a small commission on whatever you buy without any additional cost to you, which is highly appreciated. So let's try Waves Curves EQ on an acoustic guitar. So let's listen to the original acoustic guitar while also learning it. You can see that it has detected that it's listening to an acoustic guitar. And by the way, if you want to, there are other typical target curves for various instruments here that you can select as well. But let's stick to what it detected and let's listen to its various suggestions. I know that this is a pretty full mix, so I think this curve might suit it pretty well. Let's see how much that deviates from the input spectrum. Okay, not that much, so let's listen to it together with the vocal.
I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fitting. I'll add another instrument in a minute which will make it a lot thicker. But just so you know, it's also possible to add notes on this target curve if you want to change it manually. For example, let's say that I want to change the target curve here. I can just double click to add a note and then basically influence how much processing is done around this frequency area. And I can set the Q factor and the exact frequency, of course. But it's important to know that you're not actually doing any EQing here, but you're adjusting the target curve. Meaning that, for example, if I take this all the way up, you can see that the actual processing, which is the red part, goes up as well, because it needs to adjust this input curve over here to this target curve. So it needs to boost a lot to get it up there. So you're basically adjusting the target curve, influencing the actual processing that is done to get your original signal to that target curve. And let's add a bit of electric guitar on there to see how Curves AQ does on that. And in this case I have the plugin on the stereo track, and you can see over here that you get some extra controls there, because you can determine whether the processing is done on the linked stereo signal, on the left or right side of the stereo signal separately, or whether it's done separately on the mid and side signal. And you can also tilt that to the left or right or middle side with this control. So let's learn the electric guitar. And let's listen to it together with the other parts that we already had.
I'll be on my way. 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 You are my. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Yeah, I think I like this one best. Now another feature that we haven't talked about yet is this Mixsense here on top, which is now disabled because you need a signal to the sidechain for this. So let's feed the sidechain with the lead vocal. And this basically allows you to dynamically EQ the signal that the Curves AQ plugin is on based on the frequency spectrum of the lead vocal. So I can make sure that the electric guitar does not interfere too much with the frequencies in the lead vocal so that it cuts through a bit better. Let's try that.
I'll be on my way. 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 You.
Let's disable and enable it while we're playing.
I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way.
Yeah, so as you can see, it clearly makes a difference on how this lead vocal cuts through these thick guitars. Now let's find out next what Waves Curves AQ can do on a full mix. Okay, in this case I have it on another track, which is more of a pop track. So in the manual they suggest that before you learn you set this to mix mode, and then over here select the style of the track. So let's just select pop and listen to this while learning.
In the city lights, when dreams come alive, if I'm in freedom, no more compromise. The echoes of doubt are fading away, and we're riding this crib. I'm owning the stage. In the city lights, when dreams come alive, if I'm in freedom.
Okay, let's listen to the various suggestions that it came up with.
In the city lights, when dreams come alive, if I'm in freedom, no more compromise. The echoes of doubt are fading away.
Okay, let me try that again with a slightly different style maybe. Let's see what it comes up with when I select K-pop and relearn. And let's listen again to the various suggestions that it does.
In the city lights, when dreams come alive, if I'm married, no more compromise. The echoes of doubt are fading away.
I kind of like that first one actually. Let's compare it bypassed and with curves EQ on there.
In the city lights, when dreams come alive, if I'm married, no more compromise. The echoes of doubt are fading away. I'm rewriting the script.
Yeah, I actually like it better with that processing on there. It makes the whole track sound a bit more smooth. And again, it takes some of those hard edges out there in a very quick and easy way. Now, as for controls on the plugin, I think we've looked at most of them by now in our examples. There's one which I haven't discussed yet, and that's the offset over here. And this basically allows you to shift the target curve, left or right, as you can see. And in the manual, it says that this is used primarily to align the target curve with the input curve when they come from different keys or fundamental frequencies. So maybe if you have used the target curve from another instrument and then want to align it to the actual sound that you're applying it on, you can shift the target curve to make all of that work a bit better. So what do you think? Is this a useful plugin for you? Is it comparable to some of the other smart EQs? Or does it do its thing in its own sweet way? Let me know in the comments so we can have a bit of discussion on that. Now again, Waves Curves EQ is available as of today. I'll provide an affiliate link to the plugin in the description as well, so if you do want to pick it up, it would be nice if you do it via my link. I understand that they also have an initial cheaper introductory price, as well as a discount if you already own Waves Curves Equator. So check it out on the Waves website for all the details. Now, if you have not heard of Waves Curves Equator yet, I made a video on that one as well, which is also a very interesting plugin competing with the likes of Soothe, for example. I'll link that video over here. Check it out, enjoy, and see you soon.